Welcome to Impact Signals, social impact at the scale of AI. I'm Charlie.
And I'm Sarah.
It's Friday, March 13th, episode 29 of Impact Signals, and we're closing a week where research and real-world AI deployment collided at scale. Today, a flood prediction breakthrough that works without a single ground sensor, a new AI platform from the Red Cross, a fairness-first logistics algorithm, and a major OCHA report on the state of humanitarian data published this morning. Let's start with the lead. Google announced Groundsource on Thursday, and this one is genuinely significant. The core problem, flash floods kill more than 5,000 people a year, but urban street flooding has always been nearly impossible to predict because most cities don't have the river sensors that traditional flood warning systems depend on. Google's solution was to go looking for data where it already exists, in newspapers.
Right. The Gemini model was deployed to scan more than 5 million historical news articles going back to the year 2000. It extracted qualitative flood reports, confirmed their timing and location, and structured them into a geotagged dataset of 2.6 million flash flood events across more than 150 countries. That dataset is now public. It feeds an LSTM neural network that combines historical event data with current weather forecasts, urbanization density, soil absorption rates, and topography to produce a 24-hour advance warning for urban areas at 20 square kilometer resolution.
The accuracy numbers are interesting. Compared to the U.S. National Weather Service, Groundsource identifies more actual flood events, a 32% recall rate against the NWS's 22%. It generates more false positives. Precision drops to 26% versus 44%. Google's framing is that this is a tunable threshold. Organizations can adjust sensitivity based on their operational capacity to verify alerts before deploying response.
The system has already been integrated into Google Flood Hub, which currently provides river flooding warnings to around 2 billion people. Adding urban flash flood coverage extends the protective umbrella to a category of disaster that has historically had almost no advance warning. A Southern African disaster authority ran a beta test, received an alert, dispatched field teams to verify, confirmed the flood on site, and deployed response. That's the cycle this is designed to support.
One important caveat. Groundsource's performance degrades in regions where news coverage is sparse. It relies on the news archive to build its historical baseline. That creates a structural bias. The regions that need early warning most urgently are often the ones with the thinnest media coverage. Google is aware of this. It's worth watching how they address it as the dataset matures.
For practitioners, the dataset is free and public. Flood Hub integration is live. Organizations working in urban disaster preparedness should be looking at how Groundsource alerts fit into their last-mile communication protocols, particularly in regions where they can't rely on NWS equivalent coverage.
The second story is a new humanitarian AI platform funded by AWS. The American Red Cross received an AWS nonprofit Imagine grant announced Thursday to develop Clara AI, a unified platform that spans the organization's 4 service areas: disaster relief, blood services, military family support, and life-saving training.
The design problem Clara is solving is familiar to anyone who's tried to get help from a large humanitarian organization in a crisis. People don't always know which part of the organization to contact, and the internal service lines are siloed. Clara is intended to reduce that friction, helping disaster-affected individuals navigate across service channels without getting lost.
What makes this notable beyond the announcement is the pattern it represents. We've now seen AWS, Google, Microsoft, and Anthropic all channeling nonprofit grant funding specifically toward AI infrastructure for crisis response. That's a significant investment moment for the sector. The Red Cross's reach, serving more than 35 million people annually across its service areas, means Clara's scale potential is meaningful if the platform performs.
The specifics of Clara's architecture haven't been detailed publicly yet, but the framing suggests a retrieval-augmented agent model, querying across the Red Cross's service infrastructure and routing people to the right resources or human staff. We'll be watching for a technical briefing as the platform develops.
Third story is out of Stevens Institute of Technology, and it targets a problem that doesn't get enough attention in humanitarian logistics: fairness.
The standard approach to disaster aid delivery optimization is to minimize average delivery time. And that sounds right. You want aid to get there fast. But what it actually does is prioritize the accessible areas and leave the most isolated survivors waiting significantly longer. Associate Professor Jose Ramirez Marquez and his team developed an evolutionary algorithm that optimizes for a different objective, minimizing the gap between the fastest delivery and the slowest delivery.
Specifically, the model seeks to minimize delta T, the difference between the first delivery time and the last. It processes geographic data from flood maps and aid dispensing coordinates, dynamically generates routing paths for hybrid truck-drone networks, and balances workload against operational costs. The team simulated it in urban settings, Hoboken, New Jersey, and in rural disaster environments, and the algorithm adapted to both.
For operations coordinators, this matters practically. Drone delivery in disaster zones typically uses trucks as mobile hubs that launch drones for last-mile delivery over damaged roads or flooded terrain. The Stevens model gives coordinators a real-time decision support tool for generating routes that don't leave isolated populations, elderly residents, mobility-impaired survivors, communities on the far side of a flood cut, waiting until the last of multiple delivery cycles.
The research was published this week. It's early stage, simulations, not field deployment, but it addresses a genuine ethics gap in the logistics optimization literature. The humanitarian sector is increasingly focused on community-centered AI design. An algorithm that explicitly codes for fairness, not just throughput, is a meaningful step. Story 4. OCHA Center for Humanitarian Data released its State of Open Humanitarian Data 2026 report this morning, the annual flagship assessment of the Humanitarian Data Commons. A few findings worth flagging for practitioners.
The report highlights a significant and growing challenge on the humanitarian data exchange. AI bot traffic is distorting usage analytics on HDX and posing data integrity risks. HDX hosts the datasets that power a substantial portion of the sector's AI tools, displacement tracking, flood modeling, needs assessments. If bot traffic is contaminating download and access data, it affects how organizations prioritize dataset maintenance and understand demand. That has downstream effects on AI training pipelines that rely on HDX as a source.
The report also covers the state of climate-relevant data sharing across UN agencies and NGOs, which matters directly for the kind of climate AI systems we've been covering all week, including Groundsource. And it benchmarks the open data ecosystem more broadly, which is the infrastructure layer underneath most humanitarian AI deployment today.
Practitioners who are building or procuring AI systems that use HDX data should read this report. Understanding the health of your training data source is not optional. It affects every model built on top of it.
Story 5 is about scale. The Humanitarian Leadership Academy released a global pulse survey this week covering 2,500 humanitarian practitioners across more than 140 countries. 70% of respondents report using AI regularly.
That is a majority of humanitarian workers, and the applications they're using AI for most commonly are communication, report writing, translation, and research synthesis. Not decision support, not logistics optimization, not predictive analytics. The frontline adoption is happening in the tools people use to do their daily administrative work, not in the sector's headline investment areas.
And here's the governance gap. Roughly 30% of organizations have formal AI policies or structured training programs for staff. So 70% of the workforce is using AI regularly, and fewer than a third are doing so with organizational guidance, ethical frameworks, or defined accountability structures.
This is the defining tension in humanitarian AI right now. Individual adoption has outrun institutional governance. As HNPW 2026 closes today in Geneva after 2 weeks of humanitarian coordination discussions, this gap is the central governance challenge heading into the second quarter. Organizations need to move from AI is happening to here's how we do it responsibly. And that shift requires investment in policy and training, not just tools.
Before we close, a few things on the calendar with flagging. HNPW wraps today in Geneva. WIS's prizes nominations close tomorrow. If you know a project that deserves recognition, March 15th is the deadline. NVIDIA GTC opens Monday in San Jose with an AI for Good track. The Disasters Expo USA is next Wednesday and Thursday in Anaheim. And the Google.org Impact Challenge has 3 weeks left. $30 million in grants for AI and government innovation, $1 to $3 million per awardee, deadline April 3rd. If you're leading a nonprofit or academic institution with a generative or agentic AI project for public service transformation, this is a funding opportunity worth examining.
Coming up in the next 2 weeks, AAAI Spring Symposium on AI plus Humanitarian Assistance and Disaster Response at Stanford on March 24th, RightsCon in Nairobi on the 28th, Digital Rights and Humanitarian AI Governance, and the AI plus Disaster Risk Reduction Conference on March 26th online, bringing practitioners and researchers together to synthesize the accelerating evidence base.
That's Impact Signals for Friday, March 13th, 2026. If this briefing is useful, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Check us out at impactsignals.ai and share it with someone working in the field.
Stay ready.